Welcome to The Route to Success, where we talk about what it really takes to keep going when the path forward is not clear. Today's episode is about something many people experience, but few talk about openly: feeling stuck between what you've done and what you know you're capable of. Our guest, Scott Torrin, has spent years solving problems, improving processes, and driving operational efficiency across multiple roles. But like many professionals, he has faced a challenge that data shows impacts millions of workers. Career growth is often tied to job titles, not actual skill sets. That gap creates real barriers. Scott is navigating this transition. He knows where he wants to go into operational excellence and continuous improvement, but also knows that path is not linear. It requires resilience, clarity, and persistence. This conversation is about identity, motivation, and what it takes to keep moving forward when doors keep closing. Scott, I want to thank you for being on the show and being somebody who is willing to have a very difficult conversation on a podcast. I love that.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. So let's start with your journey. And just for clarification, I met Scott. We both serve on an advisory board for OU. And I have to say, I was probably very checked out on that advisory meeting. Was behind that deadline as normal, and Scott was very involved. So let me just say, I've seen him shine. So I know he's a great person for this. So let's start with your journey. You've built a career around solving problems and improving systems. When did you realize that was the work you actually wanted to pursue full time?
Sure. So in my career, I've had a number of different roles. I've worked in different industries, everything from retail, working in a restaurant gift shop, to working for a pharmaceutical company, working for a engineering and construction company. And as I've sort of navigated those different transitions and thought about what I wanted to do for my career full time, what I started to think about was, at all of those different roles and all of those different industries, what were the days that I actually enjoyed coming to work? What were the days that I didn't feel like I was working? And a specific example would be, in a prior role, there was a documentation issue that there was a group at the company that was supposed to be reviewing a specific document, and they weren't. And it was nowhere in my scope of responsibility to hunt that down and figure out why. But it became all I could think about for the rest of that day. And so, as I started to have that realization and think about that, I was like, okay, so the things that I enjoy about work, the days that I don't feel like I'm working, are the days that I feel like I'm solving problems, I'm making an impact. I'm digging into the things that maybe other people don't want to or don't see. And it just became a challenge to figure out what role best allows me to do that full time. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
Gotcha. So I think this is very interesting, and I want to talk about this for just a minute.
Sure.
You started off your reflection by asking, what days made me the happiest? What days did I not feel like I was working? And I'm curious, what led you to that question? Because one, that's a brilliant question. And that's not quite a question you typically hear people asking. So how did you get there? What led you to that exact question? And the only reason I'm asking for your kind of chain of thought is to help other people get there.
Sure. So the roles that I've had in my career, for the most part, they've involved a lot of really mundane work. Not necessarily data entry, but kind of on that level of, I feel like anybody could do this job kind of thing. And I don't particularly enjoy that kind of work. And so I started to think about, when I had moments like when I was resolving the documentation issue, it was a realization that, my whole day had gone by and I wasn't watching the clock. I wasn't thinking about, how many hours until I'm done? How many hours until I can go home? I was thinking about nothing other than solving the issue. And so kind of the more I had those moments where I realized that, the more I sort of started to think about, well, what fueled those moments. I like those moments because time flies and I enjoy my day. So looking back at my career, can I identify other times when that was the case? And when I identified the common thread between all of those, kind of agnostic of industry or role, then that kind of pinpointed for me what I needed to be doing.
I love that. Okay. So now if you are in a similar situation, you have a clear linear line to follow of how the questions asked, be very logical. I think the thing to stress here is this is one of the conversations that you have with yourself where you need to be the most honest, brutally honest. You can't be nice. You have to just dig deep. But that digging deep is going to lead to the answer that you need. All right, Scott, you're in the middle of a career transition, and I just would like to say I've been in the same situation as you. Your titles don't reflect your skill set. How does the disconnect impact, or how has, excuse me, how has that disconnect impacted your job search and your confidence?
Yeah, it's made it incredibly difficult. Job titles just kind of off the bat, they can mean so many different things from one company to the next, from one industry to the next. So just doing a search for a particular job title doesn't necessarily turn up anything that you think would be related to what you expect from that job title. Operational excellence will get you all over the board from, the kind of role that I'm looking for and that I'd like to do, where you're kind of solving problems and being proactive. But then in other situations, it may mean, going to a manufacturing plant or a facility and using very strict, regimented methodology to solve problems and improve things and all that good stuff. So the titles themselves, because there's no standard definition, it can mean very different things. In terms of my job search and my confidence, that's one way it's affected my job search, is just trying to identify what on earth are the job titles that I should use to actually get the job that I want. And when you do your searches on the various job boards or wherever else, um, you get so many results and you have to really comb through them all with a fine level of detail. In terms of my confidence, a lot of the job titles that I see or job postings that I see will have not necessarily as a requirement, but a preference. They'll say, well, we want X number of years of experience doing whatever that job title might be. Well, for somebody like me, because I've never had that specific job title, I have to try and think about my work experience and parse out, okay, how many years can I honestly say I have experience doing this thing? Um, and when you don't feel like that matches up, or even when you start to second guess it because it's just not a clear answer, it really starts to hinder your confidence in terms of, yes, I should apply for this. Yes, I think I'm good for this role. You start to question, okay, well, if they're looking for, 7 years of this process improvement experience, do I really feel like I can justify that? Or if I answer yes to that, am I overstating my experience, or overstating my abilities? So um, it really can second guess you, cause you to second guess yourself before you apply for a role.
And I would think that that would affect how you write your cover letter, and then even affect how you walk into an interview, which you're giving me so much to think about here, Scott. So I want to thank you for this because I think as leaders, we don't think this way. And I mean that all very complimentary. It's very interesting. Like
Right.
I learned years and years ago, I never list college degree required. I always put something
Mm,
like college degree or life experience or equal life experience
mhm.
because I learned in all the, different jobs that I've had that a lot of times, story, I had an assistant who had an MFA from a huge, very prestigious school in the UK, right? Got to work for me, couldn't write a business letter, couldn't follow directions, couldn't do this. And that was a really eye-opening experience that when I hired someone who barely had a high school diploma and they were doing, and then I realized it's about experience and or the college degree, but it's also about getting to know that person. So it's also how do you word that job application where you get the right people to apply. So I think great conversations will come from this. Okay, great question that I would like to ask. A lot of companies say they hire for skills, but in reality, they hire for experience that matches the title, which we were just talking about. Um, how are you navigating going through that? What is your support system? Do you think networking events would help? Like, what do you think is the answer there?
So that's a tough question. I think obviously the hot topic for everybody right now is AI, right? Um, spending time on LinkedIn, whether it's the social media posts or the job boards, there seems to be this kind of arms race that you've got applicants who are using AI to quickly customize their cover letter and their resume. Some AI apps even will claim to apply to jobs for you. And so, things are just getting flooded with applications. I've seen posts on LinkedIn or job postings on LinkedIn that might get 300 applicants a day. I saw one the other day that had 12,000 applicants for the length of time the job was posted. Now, some of those might be jobs that were just posted for legal reasons that they already knew who they were going to hire, and so they're not even really monitoring the job post. But on the recruiter side or the HR side, they then have to use an AI program or an ATS or something to try and screen all of those resumes that they're getting. And so there's no avenue right now, it feels like, for a real person to evaluate your resume or your cover letter and identify the experience that you might bring to the table. It's all about keywords. It is the sense that you get. And so I've worked with ChatGPT as well to try and, really fine tune my cover letter or fine tune my resume. I've been careful to make sure that all the words are my own and that I have a story for everything and I can support it and back it up. But it seems like so much of it is just a language game right now that you can't just say, well, this is what I do, or this is what I like to do. This is what I'm good at. You have to try and use the right words in the right way to try and not fool the screener but get to the next level just so you can interact with a real person. Um and so it's a real challenge right now. I've actually gotten to the point, um coming up here pretty soon. I've kind of shortlisted some companies in the area that I might like to work for, and I'm going to send a hard copy of my resume and my cover letter. I'm going to try and identify the right contact at that company, maybe through LinkedIn or a company directory. And I'm going to send a hard copy just in hopes that I can get it in front of a real person who might read it and, be able to reach out to me. Um, Even LinkedIn messages, you never know how many messages a recruiter is getting on a daily basis, and they have to try and parse through all of those. So, um, it really makes me feel like I'm going to have to go back to an old school kind of approach, because I'm navigating this career change.
So it's so interesting what you are saying because it's so similar to the fight or the battle, whatever word you want to choose, that nonprofits are facing in the grant world. There
Mm.
with cuts at the federal level, there are trickle down funds, all that jazz. Private foundation grants are getting harder and harder to get. And trying to, like you said, just making through that initial screening process to get to the person is getting harder and harder. And I will tell you in the last couple of years, and I've always done this, but I've really started to do this in the last couple of years, um, email the right person, right, to get a meeting, message them through LinkedIn, hard mail stuff. And I have to tell you, at least in the foundation world, it probably has about a 10% return rate, but when I can get in front of those people, every single time I can close the deal. And I can tell you that right now in the grant world and fundraising, it is all about those connections. So speaking from that experience to what you're doing and what you're preparing to do, I think that's the absolute right answer, is to do that old school. Here's a hard document. Let me shake your hand. Let me look you in the eye. Those are always the results that work. And then when I teach grant writing, let me give you this tip. And you probably already know this because you've done your research. What I always say is after a meeting, send a handwritten thank you card.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've done that for years. When I started at a previous employer, after a year, they sent everybody to company culture school. And so you have all these speakers and all that good stuff. Well, with interoffice mail, you don't need somebody's address. You just need their name, and then you can send it to them. And so I made it a point to send each one of the speakers a handwritten thank you card for coming and speaking and sharing their experience. Um, and yeah, it is difficult from a networking aspect because of the companies I've worked for. For instance, when I worked at the pharmaceutical company, the majority of the contacts that I knew there and that I'm connected with on LinkedIn are all scientists. They're all biologists, scientists. So from a networking standpoint, they're not necessarily that helpful in terms of, knowing the sort of role that I'm looking for or being able to leverage that. So you really have to be intentional about trying to grow your network. Um, the company that I work for now, employees of the company are also or can participate in like a local business group or the Chamber of Commerce. Um, and so you can get on their mailing list, you can get invited to events, you can see their event calendar. And it's a good opportunity to go to some of those events, try to get out there, try to improve your face-to-face networking. And so you really kind of have to be creative and intentional about it.
Yeah. Well, if I come across anything that works in the foundation world, I will send that over to you immediately because I have a feeling we will be using similar tools. Um, so you have been very open about not feeling fulfilled in your current role. What does that feel like on a daily basis? And how does that affect your sense of purpose?
Yeah, it's hard. We talked earlier about the days that I've worked that I didn't feel like I was working, or that I've really enjoyed. And right now, I don't have any days like that. That the majority of my responsibilities, if not all of them, are tied to mundane roles. Since the beginning of the year, one of the main responsibilities that I have is to administer trainings, internal trainings on a software that we use. And there's been a movement to try and turn as many of those trainings as possible into e-learning modules. So my job, a big chunk of my job since the beginning of the year has been that. So I'm taking the trainings that I normally deliver live and I'm turning them into e-learning activities with click throughs. So I have to do individual screenshots of every single step and I have to put them in the right format. Um, and it's just brutal. I mean, there's no opportunity to work on the sorts of things that I like to work on. Um, I'm certainly not assigned them, but they're even difficult to locate just based on the nature of the work that I'm doing right now. And so, um, it does lead me to, in terms of a sense of purpose, it's not that I feel like my work is meaningless because it's not, but it's certainly nowhere close to the impact that I feel like I could have, that I've had in the past or that I certainly would like to have. And it makes it hard, because you get to the end of the day, even though I'm just working at home in front of my desk, the whole day just feels like a slog. I mean, you're just watching the clock constantly and counting the hours until you're done. Um, and it just, yeah, there's no larger sense of purpose. There's no sense that I'm a part of something bigger or impactful. Um, it's it's a struggle for sure. And it what it does do is it motivates you to try and find something different. And so that motivation can be a good tool, but it certainly comes with a cost. So
Talking about motivation, your motivation is deeply tied to your family. How does becoming a husband and father, or how has becoming a husband and father changed how you think about your career and the risks you're willing to take versus when it was just you?
yeah, it's a good question. So I am married. We have two kids. We have a 4-year-old daughter and a son who just turned one. And um, I have told people that I never once in any job I had complained about my compensation until I got married. That my wife is an optometrist and her income, as she describes it, is going to be relatively static. That optometrists just kind of make what they make unless at some point she becomes a partner in a practice or opens up her own practice. And so between the two of us, the one with potential for income mobility is me. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And so it has been a big motivating factor in terms of, finding the career that I want, finding the opportunity that I think will pay me what I'm worth, and that, at a company that will value me and what I bring to the table in terms of my strengths and abilities. The risks you're willing to take is an interesting question. My dad, when I got married relatively late. That I married my wife when I was 35, and my dad always used to tell me when I was in my 20s, in terms of your career, right now is the opportunity for you to go elsewhere and travel and relocate and all of those things. And I just never really took him seriously on that. Not that I didn't believe him, but I just didn't have the desire to relocate away from my family. And because I didn't have a set career path, when you're kind of lost about what you're looking for and you open your avenue up to the United States at large or the world at large,
Yeah.
it's just too many options, right? And so my mentality was, well, I'll just stay close to family. I'll stay in the same area. Well, now that I'm married and I have young kids, relocation is off the table for sure. Um, Even work that would take me away from home very much is off the table. And so it's sort of like I missed my window to really embrace some of those risks or embrace some of that, max flexibility that you have when you're a single adult. And it's a complication because now I'm faced with a mentality that I'd really like to find what's right for me, but now I have to balance it with all of these other things. So my as you said, my family is a huge motivating factor for me in terms of finding something that I want to do and finding something that's right for me. Even the way I interact with them about my work. I don't want them to see me finish work every day and then complain about what I'm doing, or kind of have this weight on my shoulders because I'm so bummed about what I had to do today. Um, I want them to see that work can be energizing, that it can give you a purpose. It can fulfills something for you. Not everything, but it can fulfill you and serve a purpose. And I want them to see that. So
Well, I can tell you, as somebody who had a child very young, you don't take risks when they're young, when they're little. It's just kind of like making it through the day. Now that I have a 22-year-old, it's like, oh, I could be a little riskier. Oh, I can travel for work. And so it's interesting to get back out there like that and work. Um, but I would say, cherish those moments because man, you turn around and they're 22.
well, I know. Well, and I can't, it's interesting if I can't wait until they're 22 to if I'm gonna take risks, it's gonna have to happen maybe a little sooner than that. Because when my daughter is 22, I will be 61. So not that that's,
Not
immediately
old.
retired, but it's close to retirement-ish age, potentially. So yeah, I don't know what the future is going to hold, but um, it's it's an adventure every day with kids
Yeah.
that young.
I will tell you, one thing I did with my daughter because I was growing in my career and I went to graduate school with her when she was little, is I let her see me fail and I let her see me grow and we
Yeah.
celebrated together and we cried together. And it's really interesting her level of maturity and the jobs that she looks at, and the way she looks at life compared to her peers because I didn't hide things from her. I mean, I had jobs like you where every day was just a chore and you hide that, right? But the failures and the risks and things, we would talk them through and it's made such an impact. So you also have such an incredible opportunity of what you can teach your kids. I mean, that's how I'm choosing to look at it is the amazing opportunities that life has given you to be able to grow your children in such an incredible way. Um, all right, let me ask now maybe a little bit more of a negative question, but something I'm sure people are wondering about. When you face rejection or feel stuck, what do you do to reset, stay grounded, keep moving forward? And my big one, keep the thoughts positive.
It's this isn't a perfect analogy, so bear with me. Uh, I have frequently compared looking for jobs, especially online, with online dating.
Oh, yeah.
My wife and I met on Match, and I remember early on in my time with Match getting an email where they update you on how you're doing in comparison to successful matchers. And it was something like if you send 45 messages a week and you get 5 responses, not even, positive or negative responses, but 5 responses, that's on par with a successful matcher. And um, it that kind of helps you put in the mindset of the kind of odds that you might be facing or that the kind of rejection that you might expect to see. But where I'm going with that is that when I was online dating, I wasn't interested in 1,000 matches. I was interested in the one right match.
Right.
So similar to the job search, yeah, it would be nice to have, 1,000 jobs where I can kind of bounce offers off of each other and get myself in the best possible scenario. But really what I'm interested in is the one right match for me. And so I think when you have that mentality, you're not hanging your hat on every rejection. There are jobs that you get excited about when you apply for them and you hope that you hear back or you hope that, it works out. But if it doesn't work out, you can just tell yourself, well, I'm not interested in 100 matches. I'm interested in the one match that's right for me. And so I just have to keep looking for that one match. Um, and so that kind of helps you to put it in the mindset of, okay, well, I just have to keep going. I have to keep looking. That match is out there for me somewhere. I just haven't found it yet. Um, and that helps you to stay positive. In terms of, resetting and staying grounded, I think not making it when you're looking for a job, especially if you're in a position where you have a job already, not making looking for a job your entire identity, making sure that you leave room to be a husband, be a father, pursue hobbies, um, pursue other activities that you devote some time to it every day or every couple of days, but you make sure that you're not so wrapped up in the job search that every rejection becomes crushing or you obsess over it. You have to kind of keep it in the right priority and the right frame of mind.
So it sounds like it's all about perspective and putting the right energy and understanding that the opportunity is coming, the perfect opportunity is coming. And so I think I'm going to say this right. The more no's you get, the quicker you get to that perfect opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. That every no you get is one you can cross off the list. On LinkedIn when I do my job searches, one of the things that I do is if I see a job that I know is not what I'm looking for, I know is not right, I'll click the X in the corner so that it won't show me that job again. To say, well, I don't want that job to keep showing up every time I do a search. So I'm going to be proactive and I'm going to say, well, I know that's not right for me. So let's take it off the list right now. That it works both ways. You don't necessarily just have to wait for the company to reject you. You can be proactive if you know it's not going to be a good fit and say, okay, well, I know that postings from that company, I don't have to do anything with them because I know it's not going to be a good fit culturally or whatever. And so it really helps to narrow down your list so you can get to that yes.
I love the healthy boundaries that you're putting in place. I love how healthy this whole system that you're developing feels. Um, okay, so let me ask you for the big question. Because we always like to leave people with a practical step they can take. So for someone listening who feels stuck between where they are and where they want to be, and let's say looking for a job, going to school, just something stuck, right, between major life changes, what is one practical step they can take today to start bridging the gap?
Sure. I'm an overthinker. I'm a big time overthinker. And I will try to think 40 steps ahead of where I am. And I've had times in my life where I've seen counselors or therapists. And I remember one of them gave me a post-it note when I when I graduated counseling. And it just said, focus on the bridge in front of you first.
Oh,
And it's this mindset of don't try to think 40 steps ahead. If you're in college or you're, currently going back to school for something, don't think about, well, in 20 years, this is what my life might look like if I do X, Y, and Z. Just try to focus on and do the next bridge. A friend of mine used to call it just do the next right thing.
I like that.
That you're not overwhelmed with, 100 different things that you can do. Just think of one thing that you can do, one actionable step, one person you can contact, one letter you can send, one class you can take, a certification you can pursue. Just try to focus on the next bridge and don't get too far ahead of your plan. It's good to have a plan. And if you can break that up into actionable steps, that's wonderful. But then just focus on the next one. Don't try to think too far ahead.
I agree. I do that with my life. I take my big, big goals and break them down into actual steps. And then I tell myself every day, I just need to get this one step done. And then I have to be honest, I always celebrate that step. I'm like, and I always, so many people, I think they forget to look at the progress. They just want to see that end result. And for me, at the end of the day, if I can say, I did all this on my to-do list today. I am keeping my routines, I'm keeping my habits, I'm making being true to myself, my promises. That's that progress. And I think that's what keeps you going in all those really hard times.
Yeah, I have a really hard time remembering to celebrate wins. That I feel like if I did something right, then I just did what I was supposed to do. And so I don't necessarily deserve a cookie for that. Um, and I'm not saying that's the right mentality to have at all, because it's not. Because you tend to focus a lot more than on your failures and where you
Yep.
missed rather than what you did right. But if you can, just focus on the next right thing, like even doing this podcast, for instance, you and I had never met prior to the OU advisory board. And it's not necessarily like we had a lengthy conversation in there. We kind of just went through intros and then did the board discussion. But when you tossed out the podcast and you talked about the topics that you cover, my mentality was, okay, well, I want to do this. You invited us to contact you if we were interested in being a guest. And I was like, sure, why not? I think I even messaged you before the board meeting was over.
You did.
Um,
It was great.
yeah. And so sometimes for an overthinker, it's about just making that decision, taking the action. Don't don't get caught up in the baggage of, is this the right move? Is this not the right move? If it's something simple, something that isn't some sort of a long-term commitment or something like that, um, just do it. Just make
I
the decision just to act. And if you choose no, then great. You chose no, don't think about it anymore. If you choose yes, then great. Either way, you're not thinking about it anymore. You've taken it off of your plate. You're not giving it any more mental bandwidth. Just move on to the next thing, so you don't spend too much time ruminating about what the right call is. Just being decisive has really helped me with my overthinking, in a lot of ways.
have to say, Scott, you really impressed me the way you just instantly reached out. You're like, hey, I'm sitting in a board meeting with you. Hey, I would love to do this. And I was like, you know what? I seriously want to talk to this guy because of his proactive nature. I don't have to
Mhm.
beg. And so I have to say, as a business owner and everything too, that would get me. I'd be like, I want to hear what this guy has to say because he's being proactive, because he's putting himself out there. So I think those moves, what you're saying, it's just focus on that next bridge. Don't overthink. Just be decisive. Just put yourself out there is 110% the right thing to do. Because hopefully now I can connect you with people that are going to help you make the moves that you want to make. Because I'm a connector. It's what I do. It makes me really happy. And so it's also like you were giving me a gift because I was like, oh, I can connect him with some people. I can think more about this. This is be really great. This could be a really great journey for me to sit back and watch. I can celebrate Scott every day. Think about it that way too, is like when you make that ask, you're giving that person something. Like you didn't even know. I love to connect people. I love to solve problems. So you had no idea you were giving me something that I love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, the kind of the last thing I would say earlier, we talked about, why I focused on the days that I liked coming to work, or, the days that I didn't feel like I was working. You are naturally going to be drawn to things that you're passionate about, things that you enjoy, things that you like to do. The opportunities that I've had in my career to focus on process improvement, to make impactful changes, and adjustments, those weren't things that were assigned to me. Those were opportunities that I saw and felt passionate about, and so chose to pursue those things. So pay attention to the things that you do every day that, um, aren't necessarily things that you're assigned to do. What are the things at your job that you choose to do? What are the things at your job that you take those steps um, to do, to engage, um, to to pursue, and that can help you identify kind of the things that you're passionate about too, or the things that you feel like you do well.
Yeah, Okay. So, Scott, thank you for being here today. Thank
Of
you for
course.
being so vulnerable. And I have to say, too, I was impressed with your bravery. Truly impressed because you're having a very difficult conversation on air. You're being very vulnerable. And I really want to thank you and show a lot of gratitude for the incredible person that you are. Um, and I think there's so much wisdom to take away from this episode. So what I would say is, maybe listen to this episode a couple times because it could be hard to hear the first time. It can be hard to have that honest conversation with yourself the first time, but listen to it and then create a plan. And then I think I'm just going to take what Scott says. Just cross one bridge at a time, just one bridge. And I think that would be great. So thank you for joining us on the route to success. And I hope you have a brilliant day.